in again to Two Pros and an Average Joe. This is your host and Average Joe, Brady Hanna. This is Ep.2. I've got Jeremy Koling and Paul Ulibarri with me. Say hello, guys.
What's up? What's up? Thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Yo, what up? Here in AZ, beautiful weather, 72 degrees.
Same
Happy
here.
to be on the show tonight.
Yeah.
Same here.
We got 72 degrees here. If you just subtract about 50 of those, and then the snow melts.
Add a foot of snow.
Don't complain about cold weather. You live in North Carolina. I live in Iowa.
Dude, I feel like the whole country besides Arizona got hit with snow this week. Like everywhere, people were posting pictures of snowmen and sledding. It was pretty cool, but we didn't really get like the fun snow. We just got like ice and sleet and hail, and it was just kind of, well, not much hail, but it was just a bunch of ice and, yeah.
Now, I know we're only about 45 seconds in and we've totally derailed what we're going to talk about, but have either of you got much snow playing experience?
Ooh, good question. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to defer this to Paul Ulibarri because I know that he has one of my favorite shots ever caught on film in the snow. Oh, woo! Go for it, Paul.
Really?
Was it snow or was it wind and rain when you threw it about 4 inches from your hand straight to
my God, that was in Kansas at the Monkey Island Open, and I don't know what happened. I slipped on the mud. It was snowing, and I threw it like directly into the ground, like 4 feet in front of me.
And it fluttered too, which is the best thing. Like you can like imagine flinging a disc and it catching onto your finger and then like monkey paw in another direction. This thing like looked like a dead duck just like flapping to the ground for about 4 feet.
And we don't have that on video, do we?
Oh, yeah, it's on video somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know where it is.
That's the video of you throwing it directly to the right?
No, that's I have so many good ones out there,
Here's the
deal.
It
should be a compilation of Paul's terrible shots.
I've got 2 discs that I will find, and I will put a 2-disc package that I'll sign and I'll stamp with my Big Germ stamp, and I'll send it to anybody who can find a 1-minute compilation video or put together a 1-minute compilation video of Paul's monkey paws and errant shots into the ground and putt rollaways. If you can do that, I've got 2 discs, and I'll even like write a personalized message for you, and I will promote that on all social media platforms. And it shouldn't be that hard to find those.
Oh, well, look at the time. I think I actually have to go, guys. Just getting out of that's so. No, it's out there. I know it's out there. There's at least
if somebody has really been following along.
Your good shots way outnumber your bad shots, but your bad shots are so much funnier than other people's bad shots.
It's because I throw a lot of good shots, but when I throw a bad one, oh man, it's bad. It's really bad.
You make it count, man. I think about Nick Schneider with his monkey paw sometimes. And there's some other good ones out there, but for some reason, Nick Schneider, like he'd have a bunch of great shots in a round, and he's feeling it, and he's flowing through the course, and then just out of nowhere, you just never know. It just 90 degrees, just off course. You're just like, what? No way to prepare for that. It's so.
And then he'll get up and down from like.
Yeah. Yeah. And then he'll laugh about it, and he's just like, he's not embarrassed about it. He's like, yeah, you never know when it's gonna happen. He just bounces right back up and gets up and down.
There it is.
Oh. All right, guys. I know we could talk about this for probably quite some time, but we do have an exciting show planned, and with that, I kind of want to get into the first thing, and what was life like on tour? I know it's the off season, but what were you guys doing this week to prepare for the tour?
I'll start off. I kind of have a little bit of a I got a thing I'm kind of nervous about right now. Just a couple days ago, out of nowhere, I had.
You're pregnant.
I didn't want to say anything about it, but I got a little nerve pinch going on in my leg, and the reason I'm nervous is because I played my entire 2013 season with an L4, L5 pinch in my sciatica, and it was an entire season. It was like a calendar year. It started in January and it kind of dissipated in December of 2013, and that was my heaviest touring season. And it never went away. For those of you who've had pinched nerve, you know that it's really, really discomforting, and there's really no like position you can sit in or stand in or lie down without feeling it. And it just kind of started the other day, and I'm doing some things right now to address it head on before I get on the tour. But I've been doing some stretches. I've been taking some medication to try to get the swelling down, and but I'm just trying to attack that right now before I get off to Australia. And don't want to start off the season on a bad note, but I'm feeling pretty good that I'm not going to be dealing with much pain or discomfort by then. But
and the surprising thing is you actually self-diagnosed that before you even got your doctorate. I was pretty impressed with that ability.
Well, when this came around in 2013, I had no idea what it was. And I had to go to chiropractors and the doctors and try to figure out what it was, because it was a numbness that shot all the way down my leg. And seeing as I dealt with this for an entire year, when the pain and tingling, or when the discomfort, it's not really so painful as it is just discomforting. When that started happening a couple days ago, I was like, yeah, I've felt this before. So I was kind of hoping I'd never deal with that ever again. So like I said, hopefully it just goes away. But that's basically been my main focus. The other thing that I've done this week is I've decided that I'm going to switch from Pro P2s to McPro AVRs. And so I've been doing a lot of practice putting, working a lot on like my 30-footers and just the putts you got to make. But what I like about the McPros a lot is that you can keep a straight line for up to like 60 to 70 feet. And that's another one.
Did you ask Macbeth for permission?
Actually, I masked the disc around where it says AVR, and then I took acetone everywhere else around the disc. So it just says AVR on the disc now. It doesn't say McPro or have the whole McPro design. And just to kind of make it unique for my, just so I'm not putting with the same thing that everyone else is putting with. And I sent him a picture on Snapchat, and he said that he was going to try to get me kicked off the team. So he was just kidding, of course, but he said it's blasphemous.
Was he kidding though?
Did you get any suspicious mail this week?
No, I'm kind of scared he might be serious. Anyway, what are you been up to, Paul?
Oh, I think it's kind of ironic how all our injuries happen in the off season and not when we're like going hard on tour. Because I'm kind of going through the same thing. I have my knee issue, and I've just been rehabbing, trying to get to the gym and working that out. In the off season, I like to take up a bunch of different hobbies, though. Usually it's basketball or something, but because of the knee, I actually picked up the clubs again. I've been ball golfing a lot, so I've been just kind of relaxing and I've been putting every day, though. Try to get my putts in for disc golf, but I've been kind of hitting the range a little bit and playing some ball golf rounds.
I heard something about your knee, and I wanted to ask you on air if it's true or not. Can you hit the side of your hip with the outside of your foot just standing up? Like, is your knee that wobbly?
No, it's so strong right now. It's getting stronger every day, Jerm.
Okay, that's good to know. For those of you who don't know, I have a little dance that I like to make fun of Paul's wobbly knees. And if you ever want to see it, just send me a video on Snapchat saying, hey, what's up with that wobbly knee? And I'll give you a little bit of a dance recital. And it's my impression of Paul when he inevitably gets his wobbly knees, which happens about once every 2 or 3 weeks.
Now, do you think they should just send you a message, or should they put it on their story as well?
Either way, since I check both, when people are considerate enough to send me a message, I like to look at those. But then, I also like to check stories too.
Sure. Okay, that makes sense. I was just making.
Since we're on the topic, I want you guys to know. I don't know how many private messages you received, but I've received about 30 to 40 messages on Instagram, on Facebook Messenger, text, and Snapchat from people saying, "I totally support you. I think you're doing the right thing. Keep it up." So I don't know if you guys saw this earlier this week, but I actually sent Brady Hanna a private Snapchat, but I also made it a story. So I will continue. I will be headstrong on this matter, and I will not change my ways.
Nice.
Well, we all appreciate
Good for you, man.
Staying true to your values, Jerm.
Brady,
just so you know, I average about 30 to 40 messages about nothing. So congratulations on your 22 messages about Snapchat.
I made fun of I didn't make fun of our listeners. I love our listeners, but I made fun of the fact that we might not have very many listeners. And I was actually, I saw some of the statistics about how many people tuned in. And I have to say that it was pretty incredible to see the overwhelming amount of support in our first week without too much hype or buzz or promotion. and I think that was just an incredible. It was incredible to see the numbers and the support already. So the podcast is only going to get better, and I think that we all really appreciate you guys tuning in.
We might have taken a step back with this podcast, but hopefully the numbers still.
I'm talking about next week. Yeah, it's the even number podcast. The even numbers, the 2, 4, 6. Don't even tune in. The odd ones, that's going to be where the good stuff comes about. So if you've made it this far, go ahead and turn it off. There's not going to be that much interesting content. But
they already turned off. We're literally talking to each other, I think.
Brady, I got to ask you before we get into things that are interesting to listen to. What did you do this week?
This week I worked at my internship all week. I've got a sales internship. I'm looking to pad that resume a bit. And on Saturday, I played a course called Westlake. It's probably one of my favorite courses in Iowa. And it's a crazy, crazy course around a lake. And every year, the lake freezes pretty deep. And I was walking out on the ice, playing on the ice, obviously not losing any discs. It's just, I like playing that course in the winter because it's good practice not only for the Rumble every year that they have in April, but it's also just a lot of fun because I like walking on the ice and listening to it crack and figuring out if I'm going to fall through or not. So
that place is a doozy in the wind, man. I've only played there for a tournament, and I got off the rough one time on that course.
Oh, yeah.
I had the whatever those things that the Klingons, I call them, the things that stick to you in the bushes. I had so many stuck to me, I literally couldn't get out of the bush. I had to. There was it was a league card last round, and so I happened to have we had a gallery, and they literally had to go in the bushes and help pull the things off me because I was literally consumed. I would have died there had no one else.
Westlake is one of the most challenging courses I've ever played. Probably second to Maple Hill.
It's so cool to hear disc slide on ice too. If you live down in Florida or Texas or places where ice doesn't freeze or your lakes don't freeze into ice, and you've never thrown a disc across ice, you gotta just make a trip up north, and you gotta do it. It's so cool.
It is. And thank you for asking what I was doing this week before we moved on to things people wanted to hear about. So.
I just want to make sure that each one of our listeners that had not stuck around has now gone away. So take care of that, and let's move on to the things that people did want to hear about but have left.
Okay, so the first thing I want to ask you guys about is I had an email about this, and people wanted to know what your thoughts were on a PDGA kind of player-ran discipline board. They mentioned the Bradley thing we've all heard about months ago, but what their thing was do you ever fear that there isn't a lot of just transparency on the discipline, and there's no appeals process, and it doesn't does that worry you as a touring pro that could affect you at some point? Heaven forbid it does.
Well, quickly, I want Paul to give his take on this, but I want to just go ahead and say quickly, if you don't know about Bradley Williams' incident, he's had prior disciplinary issues with the PDGA for certain reasons. We won't go into each one of the specifics, but there was an altercation between him and another player at the Ledgestone last year, and he essentially was banned from PDGA for 18 months because of it. And it kind of opened the eyes of a lot of touring players because we didn't really know why that decision was made, why it was so harsh, or what we seemed like was harsh. And without much reason given behind that, it was kind of it set the stage for a lot of questions about where do we go forward from here. So yeah, what do you have to say about that, Paul?
Yeah, no, I mean, being a player on tour, I mean, we make a living doing it, and to me, when the whole Bradley incident happened, a lot of information wasn't given about it, and still hasn't been given. So to me, it's terrifying, honestly. I mean, we're competitors, and we're out there, and tempers flare when you miss shots, and you're mad at yourself, and we all have moments of being just a human, and
which I think is totally allowed. You're allowed a moment after a shot's bad, as long as you're not taking advantage of it or you're not drawing an unnecessary amount of attention. There's no exact science behind this, but it is kind of just understood after you play for a while, and I think that you have enough experience with understanding how different cards work and the dynamic of how to get your frustration out without being
disruptive
about it. Yeah, without being destructive to yourself or others. I think that we all kind of can appreciate that, and I think that when you're at the level that most of the touring players are at, you have to have that fire. I don't think that there's very few of us that have gotten to the place where we're at without that internal fire to crack the whip when things aren't going well. But
I think
everyone has a
sorry,
different
Jerm.
way of handling it.
Sorry, Jerm. I don't want to jump in. I don't know if you're finished there, but I think obviously had this situation with Bradley maybe occurred with somebody who wasn't, in the program of discipline, it might not have even been reported at all. And, just some discrepancy on how they came to their decision, and, maybe release why they made that decision. I think that would answer a lot of questions at the beginning.
Absolutely. I mean, it's just scary to me to think that one mistake, and mind you, with Bradley, it came down to multiple times that he messed up in the PDGA's eyes, and that's what ended. I think it was maybe 1 to 2 times where he had messed up. And
he was on probation.
I think he was already on probation, exactly. But even aside from that, for there to actually be, for what he did, for there to actually be that big of suspension, I mean, that's scary. That's obviously, right. I think it was a little overboard, personally. I think a lot of us thought it was overboard.
Right.
Unfortunately, he had to be the example.
Yeah, and apparently the PDGA, I had heard from the rumor mill that it was actually a reduced sentence, that they were actually taking it easy on the 18-month suspension, which was which is really surprising to me. Like I was hearing like 2 years, 3 years, and the thing is, people out there are probably thinking, well, yeah, just don't be a jerk and this won't happen to you. It's not just about that. It's about holding certain standards to understanding what things are allowed, what things aren't allowed. If you do this, what will be the reaction to that? And so what will be the discipline for that? And I think that all sports, you have a sport, you have this concept, you have this idea that sounds really fun, and then you play, and then somebody finds a way to take an advantage of something. So then you make rules for that. And over time, this is what happens in all sports. You develop things that happen over time that develop a need for some sort of security measures or some sort of disciplinary measures. And we've never really got to this point in disc golf. I think it's funny. I was actually just watching a clip from the 80s or 90s of Cornbread Maxwell for the Boston Celtics. Actually, his daughter played volleyball at my high school. Anyways, he fell into the stands, and he gets up, and one of the stands said something to him, and he goes in the stands and he like punches the fan, and he comes back in the game and he plays the rest of the game. Like if something happened today's day and age, if a player threw a ball into the stands intentionally and hit a fan, he'd be kicked out of the league for the year, because there's certain standards that have been set because of what has happened over time. And the reason I bring that up is because like this incident with Brad we've never needed some sort of checks and balances because of behavior. Like we've always been able to be like, all right, yeah, there's been suspensions for different players for different reasons in the past, but I don't know how many times we've had multiple suspensions for the same player for different types of disciplinary actions.
Right. From Bradley Williams, I've actually heard him say that people reached out to him saying, hey, man, this is awful because I got into a fight at a tournament, actually in a fight with somebody who wasn't in the tournament. And he's like, I think he mentioned, and I was only suspended for 6 months.
Right.
And because it was such a high profile disc golfer in Bradley Williams, I think, like I said, I think they wanted to make an example of him. And I don't think it was the right time, and I don't think it was the right sentence. And that's my opinion. Obviously, I support the PDGA 100% with what they say. I mean, we have to.
Yeah. Well,
here's one thing. I don't know if I can jump in quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
You know, Jeremy, you mentioned 18 months was reduced, right? So that means the PDGA
is to 18 months.
Okay, so
according to hearsay.
So doesn't that mean the PDGA most likely has some sort of disciplinary system in place that we don't know about? You know,
that's what I've heard. Yes,
they have a board of they have a disciplinary committee. You know, and
right.
that committee, it's not like one person's just like, I don't know, give him 18 months. You know,
right.
it's like they talked about it. They came to a conclusion that they felt like would get the message across, and I think that I'm not necessarily saying that I don't think that I would not have thought that 18 months would make sense. I think it's kind of an arbitrary number. I mean, they say it's not because it's like the third suspension of 6 months, so they just keep multiplying them. But I just don't understand what a year and a half does. I think that a much more effective solution would have been, okay, so this is what's going to happen if you don't do something positive in your community. It will be 18 months. However, we will offer a reduced sentence if you do so much community service, or if you, participate in any kind of volunteer work. I don't know exactly what it would be, but some sort of incentive system where they could be like, look, you're working, you understand that you made a mistake, which he accepts. He's told me, I've talked to him about this, and he said, I messed up. I made a mistake. My temper got the best of me. It was something that I feel like certainly warranted a disciplinary action of some sort. But I think that he was kind of confused because he was like, well, this doesn't really make sense, because this doesn't, like, in a year and a half, all you can really do is you just sit around, get a job. You're really basically breeding content against the organization, and there's no love there. That's just all just, I don't know. It's not like
there's no help coming from, in my opinion, from the PDGA. Like what you're saying is, if they were to put in a system to where when you mess up that bad, that they help you get better. They help you
absolutely
learn how to tame your temper. They say, you know what, you need to go to anger management. You need to go to do this. You need to go do that. That's the way that the real world works, honestly.
Right.
And sometimes it doesn't, but in this case, I feel like there should be a system put in to where you can help people like that, to where you can be like, you know what, like exactly what Jerem's saying. You messed up, but you are showing us that you're working on yourself, and then the PDGA is making him a better person, and not just throwing this number out there, just being like 18 months, this will fix you. And then the next time he comes back, like you're saying, he didn't get help.
He didn't learn.
He didn't learn these things that he should have learned.
Right.
Well, I think that rehab is great, absolutely, like that. But here, what would the benefit of maybe having a touring card panel of disc golfers as well as the PDGA's, disciplinary committee working together, and then also classifying offenses into categories, and then saying, hey, these categories will get you this kind of punishment, or this rehab of your image and anger management, stuff like that. Just total transparency, so people know. That was the problem with Bradley. It's just so much was like, what's going on, and no one knew. And I think the PDGA said, hey, we want to keep this stuff confidential, but if they all just release and say, hey, we came to a grade 2 violation, and he's already on probation, this is where we ended up with, you wouldn't have seen the outcry.
We're at a point now where I think that the touring card, there's been debate about what does the touring card get you. Well, it's starting to actually make a difference. There's certain things that are being held, spots reserved at pro tour events, that if you're a touring player, there's a spot reserved for you up to 2 months before the event starts. And there's certain other things that are advantages of being a touring player. And so there's an incentive to do that. But I think that if there's going to be incentives to be a touring player, there also needs to be some accountability held towards those players. And so I don't think that you can govern all who knows how many registered professionals there are in the PDGA. So if you were to narrow it down to the touring players, the ones that are high profile in the spotlight, and you can have a players association that can set some sort of standardization for basic guidelines of like, this is kind of this is this sort of offense is this will happen if you violate this, you know, like excessive swearing in front of a gallery, or you know, I don't know, some sort of.
I feel like there, in a way, that there's already something in place, and we're supposed to govern each other when we're on the same card. We're supposed to give out warnings, and I feel like that does work. I've given out, Jerm knows this, I've given out multiple warnings when I think somebody's getting out of hand and they're doing something, and maybe they're not aware of. Because, like I said, our tempers flare. We miss a shot, and we work so hard to get that right that when we miss something easy, it hurts us. It's awful. But
Yeah.
like I said, I feel like we are supposed to govern each other in a way too. So it's like both sides. I feel like, would it be necessary to have something like that? I feel like that's what the PDGA needs to be doing, and then I feel like we should be doing a better job of governing ourselves on the course also.
I agree.
People are so scared to give out warnings. They're so scared because they're like, well, I don't want, let me weigh my options. I'm playing really good. He's freaking out. I don't want to get involved.
A lot of times people are scared to call warnings because they feel like if I call warning, then I have to be super careful about everything I do because they'll call warning on me. And so people are just nervous to do that in general. The thing that helped me regulate that, and I know this is kind of a bit of a tangent here, but it's important to mention that if we're going to talk about calling rules and holding each other accountable on the course, you know, I'm not out there staring at everyone's foot when they're throwing a shot in the fairway. However, I do pay attention. And I mean, it's not like I'm out there hawking looking for rules, but if somebody's blatantly abusing a rule over time, then you have to, I mean, I don't know. Harold Duvall.
Do you think we could end up having officials or referees at bigger events?
I don't think that we're at that point yet. I don't think it's part of the spirit of the game. I think part of it.
No, not now. But.
Golf is it's a gentleman's sport, and you're supposed to, you know, officiate yourself. And I think that that's a really important part of the concept of golf, not just disc golf, not just golf, but golf in general.
Golf has officials with every group on their tour.
Sure, you know, I think that. You know, I've seen times when TDs have walked around following groups that may have been slower than others and held up a clock. And I don't like that. You know, I think that it's important to, like, if they are going over the time blatantly, to be like, hey, this is a reminder, you guys have to speed it up. But I don't want somebody going around, and if it's 30 seconds on the dot and you've gone 31 seconds, to say 30 seconds has been called, you know?
There's certain scenarios where you have to take a little more time, and it's, as a group, you have to respect that, because yes, there's 30 seconds, but what is the rule in place for? It's in place for speed of play, right?
Yeah, so people aren't taking advantage of it. And that's the only time I'll make a call. If somebody's taking advantage of a rule, whatever the rule is, foot fault, 30 seconds, discipline. I mean, not discipline, courtesy. You know, if somebody's just being discourteous, you know, like I said, we all have our little things we got to get out. You know, you don't want to let that stuff build up. Sometimes you need a quick little punch in the leg, and some people need to say words that, you know, I shouldn't say on the podcast. But if they take it too far, then, you know, you have to remind them and be like, hey, you know what, cut it out. You know, like, I understand. Like, it's not that I don't understand. I get it, but, you know, you've taken it too far now.
Okay, and I would love to talk about this a ton more, guys. Maybe we will in the coming weeks, but sure. I really want to get to talking about, you know, the Disc Golf Pro Tour and other tours, you know, taking a stand with what baskets are acceptable to be used during play. And it sounds like the Pro Tour has some approved baskets. Do you guys want to, you know, tell a little bit more about that?
I think that I may be the most adamant person about basket standards. It is my goal one day to design the basket that I believe will match all the standards that I've accumulated feedback from as a touring player. So this is something I'm very passionate about personally, and there's certain baskets out there that I'm very passionately against because of the percentage of good putts that stay in. And I'm not going to name any sort of brands or targets specifically, but I love that Steve Dodge has always been a TD for the players. I don't think that if above all else, Steve Dodge stands for touring standards and creating an event that is both likable from the player's perspective and from the stands, from the gallery. And so him reaching out to the touring players and saying, which baskets do you prefer to play on? It's a huge step in the right direction. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially when your livelihood is based on the baskets catching how they've been designed to catch.
Yeah.
Yes.
And things have changed. The game has changed. And I think that that's something that people have to keep in mind. I know that people talk about bringing the basket in because the target was designed for a Frisbee and not a disc. Well, one thing to consider is that I've played tournaments, and I know Paul is as well, on baskets that are the size of the inner chains that are basically the target practice. Specifically the dynamic disc marksman. And in theory, I understand that it makes the importance of the approach and the putt more important. However, in execution, it just falls short, not just because of the difficulty of putting on it, but because the width of the chains actually provides the proper amount of suspension for a moving object flying in at a certain speed. And when you have chains and flying discs, you have variables. And when you can avoid those variables by having more suspension, and I think that that's when you increase the chance of a successful putt. And I think people are like, well, people are making putts from 60 feet. Great. That's huge. That's important. People want to see that excitement. People want to see good players making long putts. Golf is trying to make a bigger hole. Like, they're pushing for that because they're losing golfers all over the country. And a lot of that reason is speculated to be because it's so hard to putt. So they're trying to make putting easier. And we're trying to make putting harder. And I think that if you make the basket smaller, I think it's got to be top. You got to bring it down. And
I just think courses needed to be designed a little bit better on the green area that will limit areas you can make 60-foot putts from. You know,
risk reward area.
Absolutely. Just to say something real quick. I feel like the biggest problem with the baskets are they're old. The older the basket, the more it's going to spit out.
Absolutely.
And so, guess what? Upgrading and getting new equipment, that's what parks do. Yep. That's what you need to do.
Yep.
It's not bad that we're saying that your baskets aren't good. They're old. They've had a lot of good use. They did their job, and now it's time to upgrade to the newer basket.
Get them on a school somewhere, you know? Like,
yes, exactly. Take them somewhere else. But if you're going to hold a tournament and you're going to invite the top players in the world, I promise you're not going to want to see on the last hole somebody make a great putt for the win and it pop back out and roll down the hill and then lose the tournament. That's exactly that.
And that actually happened, right, with somebody in Europe, right, Jeremy? I think you said that with a spit out on a major.
Devin.
Oh, yeah.
I think Devin actually had a peek down the stretch.
Yeah, I went to Denmark this past summer to do a clinic, and I actually got to play on the course that Devin had like 3 spit outs, and they're basically homemade baskets. And it was like they're playing on a major championship, and you know the course itself was pretty nice. You know, it's a pretty park, but you just got to have you have to have standardizations. And I was going to write a proposal to the PDGA saying that we need to get a basket that is voted on by the players as the basket that travels, right? 18 baskets that goes from course to course. On each basket, there needs to be a band. The band provides a visible target, so it can be a bright color. You can see it in the woods. You can see it in low light situations. You're not squinting your eyes to find baskets that have no color on them. So I think that a bold band is very important. It doesn't have to be yellow, end of a yellow. It could be any color, just something that you can see in the woods that contrasts the surrounding environment. And going back to that, a lot of courses originally back in like the 80s and the early 90s and even the 2000s, they wanted disc golf to blend into nature. I understand that. They don't want it to be a distraction, and disc golf is very much about nature and blending in. But major tournaments, A tiers, national tours, pro tours, world tours, majors, those aren't about blending in. It's about disc golf being visible. You know, we're in a modern age of YouTube, of videos being posted, Facebook Live. People are seeing videos in every single type of social media there is. This is huge for disc golf. We need to make sure that our baskets are visible and that people can see the targets. It's very important. People driving by on the road see this thing. What is that? They want to know. They see a big gallery of people following it. That sounds like fun. I'm gonna take my kid in the park. We're gonna watch this.
Paul, what do you think about all that?
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to actually ask Jerem a question. I'd like to hear his feedback on. Do you think that the modern basket, what the companies are doing to make these baskets to where they don't cut through, and you have to hit them hard in the middle, do you think that hurts the game? I've heard a lot of people say that they don't want it to catch everything. Is there something to that? Because to me, my personal opinion is, I see where some people are coming from when they say that, no, you have to have touch when you put it in the basket. Yes, I get that. But at the same time, at what point is then spit outs part of the game again, right? Unlucky stuff part of the game.
Well, first off, you're going to have, like I said before, you're going to have variables no matter what you do. You have chains move, you have discs move, you have wind, which fluctuates how the disc flies and makes it flutter and cuts at different angles. You're going to have spit outs almost regardless of what you do. You're going to have pushbacks. That's going to happen. And what I want to see happen and what I want to design eventually when I create my disc golf target is I want to make a basket that rewards a true putt in the center. And I don't want to say regardless of speed, but I personally, I think that disc golf is moving fast, and I think the sport is moving fast, and I think that putts are going fast. I think that it's all fast, and I think that that is the future of the game. Discs are going longer. Putts are being made from further out, and that is exciting. That's promotable. You know, you can show long putts. What you don't want to see is a bunch of disgruntled golfers who are considering laying up a 28-foot putt because the basket's so dang tiny and it's windy, and you just have people flopping putts up next to the basket, and everyone's just kind of like bored. I mean, I've played in a tournament. I've seen what happens when you play on these tiny baskets. It is not a marketable product. And I think that you have to reward a good, true putt. And if you have to put a bunch of chains in there, if you have to do a cross-chain technology or whatever you want to do, some sort of diamond inside the chains, the Mach X has done that. The Prodigy T1 has done that. The Arroyo, whatever it's called, has done that.
Vortex.
The Vortex basket. And they're close. They haven't put everything together yet to make the ultimate basket, in my eyes, that kind of collects the slower, softer putt, but also collects the fast putt. But to be honest with you, we're throwing discs through the air. We're not rolling a ball on the ground and gravity makes the ball fall into a cup. We're literally projecting an object through the air, and there's variables that we deal with that golf doesn't quite deal with as much. You know, I know that wind plays a role in putting slightly in golf, but in disc golf, it's everything. And once you get to that target and you drill a putt, you know, that thing needs to stay in there if it's a true putt. And I know that that's kind of a new school opinion on that. I think that a lot of old school golfers who grew up in the game on Mach 1s, Mach 2s, Mach 3s, you name it, like just older targets that have looser chains, they developed their putting style and their game and their philosophy around putting on those kind of targets where they had to do more of a loft putt. And they had to consider, if I putt this too hard, it's going to spit out. So the game has changed since then, you know? As baskets have gotten better, putting has changed, and people are making putts more regularly because they can throw them in there fast. And some of the best players.
What do you think your favorite basket is to putt on? What do you think is your favorite basket?
Honestly, my favorite basket is the 28 chain end of a target. I've been saying that since they came out with that in 2012. I think that Prodigy's close with the inner chains, but it's a little bit too stiff. They have 20 outer chains, and that kind of creates a wall that pushes out a lot of otherwise good putts that would normally land on other baskets. The 28 chain on the end of a target has 14 outer chains and 14 inner chains. And when you have 20 chains, it just kind of creates a little bit too solid of a wall of chains. So you get a lot of bounce outs that are actually not that bad of a putt. So somewhere between there might be the key, you know, somewhere around 16 to 18 might be like the right number. But I really do think that however we can find a way to secure and guarantee a good putt goes in, I think that I want to see those variables removed as much as we can. There's already so many things that can happen on a course with hitting a root versus hitting a leaf. I don't know, hitting a flying squirrel and it turns into a roller and then it goes backwards. I mean, there's already stupid things that happen in the game that make the game so much fun, honestly.
It costs Michael Johansson the Vibram, possibly. He definitely hit a squirrel.
Yeah.
Chipmunk.
So, I mean, there's already so many cool things that go on that are like weird and random and keep it interesting. I think that when you get near the tee pad, you should have a flat, big tee pad that you can attack any way you want, and it's fair for all players. And I think it should be the same around the basket. I think that if your putt is 1 foot right of someone else's putt, but you're the same distance, because the way the chain's set up, he might have an advantage more than you because you're looking at a hole in the chains and he's not. I don't think that that's necessarily fair. I think that that's, I mean, not saying that it should just be a wall 360 degrees, the same putt from, you know what I'm saying here, but like, I think that if you can find a way to standardize the green and the teeing area, those are the two things we all share. Everything else along the hole, that's up to you. And so I want to see putt stay. That's just what I want to see.
Absolutely.
That's what I want to see. And I think that that's the future of the game. And I think that's the way to be progressive, is to find a way that rewards good putts from here on out.
Yeah. Paul, what's your favorite basketball?
I like the what is the Discraft one with the X? Help me out here.
That's
the DGA. What is it?
The DGA Mach X.
The DGA Mach X is a good basket. The Prodigy basket's a good basket, I think all touring pros agree that those are the 3 best baskets. Period.
Yep.
And the Prodigy basket's new, and so is the Mach X, and so the sport's going in the right direction. My favorite basket to putt on in a tournament is the Prodigy basket. I played my first tournament in Estonia on the Prodigy basket, and it literally saved my putt because I had to focus. It doesn't like to catch left or right, but when you hit the center, the thing stays, and I love that. And I love when I miss left and I miss right, that it won't stay. I don't want to see people catching one chain and staying in or doing – they can say it's touch, whatever. Guess what? If you hit the middle – that's the sweet spot. That's where you need to hit in order for it to stay. And yeah, maybe you might catch one on the right side or the left side that catches. But just like in ball golf, if you miss barely, sometimes if you have the right speed, it's going to catch. And that's the same with, I feel like the Prodigy basket. So my favorite target to putt on, and I putt on it almost every day because I have one.
Yeah, I've got one.
I like the fact that when I putt at it and I hit the middle, that it stays in.
Yep, absolutely. And it's great that Steve and other, UUC's got a standard basket for his tour as well. It's really great that they have their standards now, and you know what you're going to expect when you sign up for that tournament. And it's great that they're committed to that. Okay, so
the last thing I want to say about that is that I feel like one of the arguments against having a basket that catches fast putts is that there's no risk reward for that style of putt. Well,
sure, there's. You go way long.
Yeah, you got long comebackers, and if you hit the edge of the basket, you're going to roll away with more speed, and so on and so forth. So it's not like that's just the way to putt. That's just a style that I don't think is the right way or the wrong way. I think it's just a way, and I think that just because someone chooses to putt that way, I don't think that they should be at a disadvantage.
Yep, absolutely.
So I'll end on that.
Okay, so last thing I got for you guys is I mentioned that I wanted people to send us an email at 2pros1joe@gmail.com, and we got a question from Kyle Edwards, and he wants to know, how did you guys afford touring expenses when you first started out? He said it's crazy to think of a teenager being able to go on tour with such little money. Could you give me some insight on how you guys started out touring?
That's a great question. I'll say that, when I started playing disc golf, I was already 20, so I wasn't a teen. But when I started playing professional, I was 23, 24, and I was with Discraft at the time, and there wasn't monthly payments or anything like that. So all my income was based on how I did at tournaments. And I'll tell you what, it was pretty frightening. I loved it. I wouldn't do anything else. And I was stubborn about it. And I just had to be frugal with how I spent my money. But it was honestly pretty scary. And I went on the road for the first time in 2009 on tour, and I had less than $1,000 to my name. And if you don't cash it a couple tournaments in a row, you're going home. So it was a lot of pressure, but at the same time, I had a lot of confidence. So I wasn't as worried about it as I probably should have been if I was more reasonable. But I was pretty stubborn, and I knew I was gonna make it happen one way or the other. But I don't know if you don't have much money, going on tour is very difficult because you're putting a lot of stress on yourself to cash. And so I think the best thing to do is to save up. And I would not recommend or advise anyone to go on tour without at least $1,500 in the bank. That's honestly not that much either. But I feel like it's tough. I mean, at first, but I think that the way that the sponsors have stepped up their game, and you are sponsored, I think that you can make it on the road because you can get support. Well, how did you do it, Paul?
It was similar. I was actually a teenager when I went on tour for the first time. I was 19 years old. I just won the Amateur World Championship, so I was very high on disc golf. But like you said, man, it was scary. I didn't have a lot of money. I didn't leave with a lot of money. I just went out and I told myself, this is what I'm going to do. This is what I want. And there was multiple times in the first year, 2 years, where I remember I had $10 to my name, and I had to go into the tournament and cash in order to have any money to get to the next place. And luckily, somehow it all worked out. And those 2 times where I had, those 2 times where I had $10 to my name, it ended up working out for me. The one thing I want to get through to these kids that are talking about going on tour and stuff: stay in school, go to college, get an education, and then do it afterwards. Education is so important. And I hope someday, and I know someday it will happen, to where there'll be scholarships and stuff, and we'll push more for that in the future. But stay in school.
Absolutely. School.
Do it during the summer break,
Yep, and that's what I did, when I was I'm still finishing up college here, and that's like, you have to make some sacrifices to get through school. And
right. And I was Paul, I was a success story, and that's what I was. And there's a lot of people who did what I did, and they didn't go to school, and it didn't work out for them, and I guarantee they wish they did. So yeah, the best thing that I can say to the kids out there who want to do it is work hard when you can, but focus on your education. It's very important. That
being said, Austin Turner and I will be touring together as he quit after his first semester in college, and I told the same thing to Austin. And,
absolutely.
And he just, college wasn't the right place for him, and I think that I couldn't echo your sentiment any better. The number one thing is to, disc golf. We're not at a stage yet where becoming a professional disc golfer is financially that reason.
It's not easy. It's not easy. It's not an easy thing to do. I promise you guys, it's not easy.
I wouldn't. It would be an interesting statistic to see how many people have made disc golf their primary source of income versus how many people sign up to become a professional. I think it'd be really interesting to find out that number. I don't think there's really any way to really come up with that number. It would just be a guesstimation. But I mean, it's not. It's something that, like, for me, it was so clearly the only thing that I wanted to do, that I made it happen because nothing else made sense to me.
Yeah, right. And our numbers guy, Curtis, he wasn't on this week, but we are going to have a numbers guy who we can bounce these things off of. So hopefully we can task him with kind of figuring out, like you said, Jerm, just how many people have disc golf really as their sole income. I think that is absolutely interesting to know. So yeah, just playing wise.
And when we first did it too, the biggest part for me and Jerm being able to sustain on-tour capability when we were rookies was the disc golf community. The disc golf community really stepped up. And this goes back, I don't want to sound like old man Paul or something, like giving these kids tips, but be respectful. If you're respectful and you're on tour and you do your yes ma'ams and your yes sirs and you're cordial and all that stuff, people will take you in and do as much as they can to help you.
And Ricky hasn't paid for like a hotel, I think, in 7 years.
Luckily, Ricky is the number one disc golfer in the world.
My favorite Ricky story is he drafted off the Pro Discus RV on the way from Am Worlds to somewhere. He drafted off of them to save gas mileage. I thought that was hilarious.
We got so many.
We could literally turn this into a 2-hour podcast just on Ricky and Brad stories. So I mean,
we might have to have them on at some point.
Yeah, we'll definitely have them on at some point. They're both very entertaining. That's a good point though, Paul. I think that it's really important to be very courteous, and you would be. I don't think you would be surprised. I mean, just think about it.
If you are let into,
it takes you so long. It takes you such a far. It opens so many doors for you, and so it's really important to.
If somebody lets you into their house, and they let you stay there, be respectful. Clean up your messes. Do all that stuff, because there's so many. I don't want to say that the next generation is like that, but I've seen already instances where they just ruin their chances. They have one spot that they say, they don't clean up their mess, they don't say thank you, they don't do those things, and then they're never going to stay there again.
Leave a disc behind. Take them out to dinner one night.
Absolutely.
Just little small gestures like that go so far, and it goes a long way to people aren't going to remember the funny things you said or the shots you threw, but they'll always remember the way you made them feel.
Yes.
And so if you're a young disc golfer and you are trying to make it, or you have aspirations of making it on the road,
we're down here.
The number one thing is, thanks, Haley. The number one thing is to just really be as appreciative as you can of how amazing the disc golf community can be, and don't take advantage of it, and give back what you can, and it'll take you so far just to be a good person. So Keep in mind.
Absolutely. Well, guys, I think that was kind of all we had for tonight. I think we heard a lot of good perspective from these two guys about some pretty hot button issues, as well as touring. A question from one of our fans. So, like I said, send us an email. Thank you for the question, Kyle Edwards.
Great question.
2pros1joe@gmail.com. Some of them will make it their way on air. If it's not the first week after you send it, it might be the next. We're also
Brady, is that 2pros1joe with numbers or all spelled out with letters?
Oh, good question, Jeremy. It's actually numbers. So it's the number 2 pros, 1 Joe, and the 1 is obviously the number 1. That's our Gmail.
Hello?
He's gone.
All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in this week, guys. Keep the questions coming. We really appreciate you guys being a part of this new podcast, and hopefully Paul and I we can give you a perspective of what it's like to be out on the road, and maybe even Brady can give you some interesting things too, but we highly doubt it. So without
Paul, you got anything? Throwing a jab or something?
No, it was a good week, and I was happy to be a part of it. There's a lot of great topics, and I'll just can't wait till next week.
Next time I'll be with you guys, I'll be in San Francisco, gearing up to fly out from there to Perth, Australia. So if you're in San Francisco, when you hear this podcast, send me a message, and maybe we can go play at Golden Gate Park. Or whatever, but
and Jeremy will not reply, and that'll be perfect.
Probably not. I will probably take your message. Actually, you know what? I will say, if there's one thing I can pat myself in the back for, in the last 3 weeks, I've done a much better job of getting all my messages. Just even if it's just like a quick thanks. Like I said last week, the support for this new change in my life has just been overwhelming and tremendous, and I've got tons of messages. Keep them coming. It gives me so much motivation to know that you guys are out there paying attention. It It means so much to me. So I will continue to do my best to get back to you guys. But if I don't, please understand that I mean to, and it's no hard feelings, nothing personal. I just got.
And don't forget that Germ is offering 2 stamped and signed discs. If you can put together a compilation of Paul's monkey paw throws for next week, so that we can show it. And also, Germ, we're probably going to edit out most of what you said tonight. So thanks for.
If you didn't let me talk for,
we'll catch you guys next week.
That's
I gotta go. I gotta go.
See you later.